Welcome to Season 1, Episode 5 of Blooming Time Talks. My name is Catherine Suro, and today we'll be talking about Lotus Dickey, famous folk musician and fiddle player from Indiana. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about how I came across Lotus. So, I am a library science student at Indiana University. My background is in anthropology, and I'm very interested in culture and the many ways that it presents itself, such as ceremonies, language, and especially music. I think that's why when I moved to Bloomington in the summer of 2024, I was intrigued by the existence of the Lotus World Music and Arts Festival. This is a very important festival to the town, and it's filled with music with an emphasis on showcasing music from around the world. While clicking around on their website, I came across the About page, where they briefly talk about how the festival started and how it got its name. I noticed that they mentioned someone named Lotus Dickey and how he inspired the name of the festival and the spirit they try to capture. However, from simple Google searches, I wasn't able to find out as much information as I would have wanted to about him. So I decided to do a deep dive to learn more about Lotus Dickey. I wanted to learn more about who he was, what his music sounded like, and how he might have inspired the festival and those around him. So that's what my project became. Lotus Dickey was born on December 28, 1911 in Muncie, Indiana, but grew up in Paoli, Indiana. Lotus is technically his middle name, but this name was given to him because his father was reading the Bhagavad Gita, which is Hindu scripture, and it mentions a lotus blossom as symbol for purity and prosperity. And it says in Lotus's songbook, which is an awesome resource I would definitely recommend to learn more about Lotus, that his family named him Lotus to hold their hopes for an unsullied life disengaged from the pollution and corruption of the industrial age. In an oral history held at Indiana University, Lotus said that he grew up in what he referred to as the Sticks. He also called the place Little Africa, which is now known as Lick Creek African American Settlement. It was formed in the early 1800s by those wanting to escape slavery. Here it is on the map. It is no longer a black settlement, but Lotus himself spoke about the history of the area in an interview, and I felt as if it provided some cool information about Indiana's past. This is Grease Gravy Road, the road where Lotus's childhood home is located that he later came back to when he was older. I only mention the name of the road because it came up in just about every source I read and listened to. I thought there was no way there was a road in Indiana called Grease Gravy Road, but here it is. It's real. It actually exists. And it can even be seen in a documentary called Water from Another Time, where Lotus is playing in front of the home. Lotus was the youngest of 5 siblings, and even as a child, he had a connection to music. His parents loved music and singing, and his father taught him and his siblings how to read music.
He taught us the fundamentals of music and how to read some music. I'm not a fluent reader, but can learn new songs.
Lotus could play the fiddle, guitar, and pump organ. And from the same source as before where Lotus was speaking, I will let him explain how he learned how to play those instruments.
I remember my sister showing me, I think, 2 different chords on the guitar, I think D and G. And we always had the organ to hear music, and chords were something, well, ringing in my head. If we could make a start, then we could pick out the chord. After I got a start and saw then I just gradually picked out the other chord little by little and found them, and finally, after we got a little better guitar, a little easier to get the chords than with an old sprung neck guitar, that
Right.
you couldn't press the string down hardly. It's hard to press on. And through the years, then my brother was 8 years older than I, Cyprian, and he got a fiddle when he was 16, and I was 8. He said if he had a fiddle, he knew he'd learn to play it, so my father got him one. He took off on it, and I began following suit. But he was older, took the fiddle, and as we came up through the years, I'd take the guitar in second for him,
Right.
accompany him. And he wasn't much on the guitar. When I'd pick up the fiddle, he'd generally just lick or two, and he'd lay the guitar down, but I learned a lot of the tunes listening to him fiddle.
Lotus emphasized that when he was younger, They didn't have the kinds of distractions that we have today. He mentioned not having a radio, TV, or phonograph, and that instead his family would make their own music. They would gather around and sing together, so they'd essentially have jam sessions together, and this often included their neighbors. Music was an important part of his childhood and clearly helped to shape the future. However, he didn't necessarily become a professional musician after graduating from high school. In 1931, when Lotus was 19 or 20, he was in a band called the Skillet Lickers with his brother-in-law and two neighbors. It seemed that he wanted to have a career in music, but that same year was when he started working at a basket factory. He worked there for 10 years or for 10 seasons since it was a seasonal job. When he started, he made 24 cents an hour, and he worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. When basket making wasn't in season, he would help around his family's farm. He later worked at a powder plant in 1941 for 60 cents an hour in Charlestown, Indiana. In 1945, he worked at a woodworking place and later joined the Carpenters Union in New Albany, Indiana. It wasn't until the 80s that he was able to semi-retire and devote more time to his music. Lotus loved playing music, both songs that he wrote and songs he learned. In traditional folk music culture, there is an importance to passing down songs from generation to generation. Some of the songs tell stories, and by passing them down, you are keeping the history alive or remembering important people or events of the past. This method of listening to music, learning it, and participating in playing the music and passing it down reminds me a lot of my own African culture. Lotus learned many songs from those around him.
With a conglomeration of the fiddlers I've learned off of, and Alan Downey is one of them. I think I learned, either 7 or 8 tunes. Well, I knew more than that, but I mean I recorded. Then old Albert Carter, where I stayed to high school, 6 of his tunes. Old Dick Ainsworth, a man that came up from Arkansas, 6 of his tunes, and 3. Of course, I knew more tunes than that from all of them, see. But them's the one Paul Tyler, the friend backing me there, he especially liked some of them, wanted me to record them. Then John Calder, a storekeeper there at Chamberburg, where I spoke of before, he used to fill in that second for him. I think I recorded 4 I got of him. Then odds and ends of others, I recorded 32 in all.
And the songs that he learned were then passed down to other people in his life, including his own children. His son Stephen continued the tradition of playing the fiddle, and even has jam sessions at his house with his wife Nancy and other members of the community. Lotus's music covered many topics such as love.
What is love? What is love? The spark of fire to start desire, that thrilling feeling of a heart entwined with happiness, deep sweet enchantment. Whoa, you'll know without a question when you found out what is love.
Nature in Indiana.
Indiana, my home sweet home. Indiana, I long to roam through your woods and hills and valleys wide, with my darling sweetheart by my side.
And the Bible.
Samson the mighty, God's spirit did command. With mighty strength he fought the length of all of Canaan's land. Samson the mighty, oh, no man might withstand, nor none did dare till he lost his hair and fell by a woman's hand.
Lotus is said to have written more than 500 songs. Lotus did many performances, and you can see evidence of this in the Herald Times. November 19th, 1981 is the first time his name was mentioned, and he actually played at IU. This article also shows that his first performance outside of southern Indiana was at the Indiana Fiddlers Gathering, an event that brings together musicians of many traditional genres. He also did many workshops, general performances, and even played to raise funds for the Bloomington Arts Center. While it was difficult to find more information about him playing music prior to the 80s, it's clear that he was very involved in the community and loved sharing his music with others. Lotus passed away on November 23, 1989, but even after death, his legacy was not forgotten. There were reunions, memorial concerts, and I have found so many musicians that called him a mentor or found a way to memorialize him, such as Pete Sutherland, a beloved folk musician from Vermont who considered Lotus a mentor and even played in the Lotus Festival in 1996. He unfortunately passed away in 2022, but I did find a video of him playing Dickey's songs with his band called Pete's Posse. There's also Paul Tyler, otherwise known as Dr. Dosido, who I accidentally found while looking for videos online of Lotus playing. I later realized that this was the same Paul Tyler that kept appearing in my research.
Paul Tyler, the friend back into there.
On his website, he even has a whole song repertoire of Lotus's playing. I later found out that both of these musicians wrote tributes to Lotus in the back of his songbook, which is more than 200 pages in, so I hadn't gotten to that part until later. But from all this, it's very clear that Lotus impacted many, which is why it's not surprising that the Lotus Festival was named after him. From looking at their website, you can see that for many, many years, Lotus had an act in the festival that was dedicated to him. Genres from all around the world are showcased at the festival, and I think it's so cool that a town in Indiana is able to hold an event like this. I think it's even more special that it's connected to an artist from a small little town in Indiana. Through events like the Lotus Festival and through the people who both knew Lotus or play his songs, his legacy will continue to live on for many years to come. Thank you for listening to this episode of Blooming Time Talks. Catch the next episode with Amelia about the words that made women.
My brother's name was Cyprian Dickey. He said, we got it from Ed Fleming. We don't know the name, so I call it the Ed Fleming Waltz.